Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to a special Saturday edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. And let me start by saying this: evil is arrogant. And I think we've seen that on full display over the past really week and a half, as all of that arrogance that Hezbollah has shown over the years has come back down upon their heads. We saw it in the aftermath of October 7th with Hamas. Same deal. Invading southern Israel. What did you expect? Hassan Nasrallah raining some 9,000 rockets on Israel since October 8th, 2023. What did you expect? Evil is arrogant. They did not expect this. Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, now confirmed dead, the top overall leader for Hezbollah, the world's most dangerous terrorist organization for 32 years, is no more. But folks, he didn't expect this. He was in his underground lair, his bunker in Beirut yesterday, watching, I'm sure, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu deliver a blistering speech at the UN. And then in the ultimate mic drop in UN history, Netanyahu, a few minutes later, observes as Nasrallah is taken out. He knew, Benjamin Netanyahu, as he was delivering that speech yesterday at the UN, calling out the rogues and the morally depraved leaders, quote unquote, at the UN, he knew that the strike on Nasrallah was in the works. He leaves the stage. A few minutes later, across the wires, we get the news. Hezbollah's Beirut headquarters, its main command and control center, destroyed, leveled. 6 buildings there destroyed. A crater is all that's left and a massive plume of smoke. And then we learned that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah was very likely inside the building, or should I say beneath the building, because again, folks, Hezbollah intentionally uses civilians, just as Hamas does, intentionally uses civilians as human shields. And they had a massive command and control center in Dahia, the southern suburbs of Beirut. That's a Hezbollah stronghold, always has been. And then Israel used 85 tons, reportedly, 85 tons, I've heard 82, 83, 85 tons worth of bunker-busting bombs delivered by the Israeli Air Force. And it was pretty certain that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah would not survive that. But when we came to you here yesterday, we said, look, we can't confirm it. We're careful here, obviously. Is he dead, alive? Is he wounded? We don't know yet. This morning, we got the official confirmation, not only from the Israel Defense Forces, but from Hezbollah itself, and the condolences of the Iranian regime. Now, we have a lot to unpack here. Some more of the specifics of what exactly went on. I said the great mic drop by Netanyahu. How about the great swerve by Israel's leadership, tricking not only Hezbollah, but the world and Western diplomats who have been relentlessly, and continue to, I'm sure, relentlessly pressuring Israel to agree to a premature ceasefire that would have left Hezbollah alive to fight another day, just as Israel is pressing the advantage. And Hezbollah, the world's most dangerous terrorist organization, with, I'm an American, with American blood on its hands, is really in massive disarray, chaos. At that very moment, the Biden administration, French President Emmanuel Macron, and other Western so-called leaders and diplomats start pressuring Israel. A drumbeat, ceasefire, ceasefire, stop, you're escalating things. Just as Hezbollah, a scourge not only of Israel, but of the world, is on the ropes, licking its wounds, doesn't know if it's coming or going, looking over its shoulder, afraid to even turn on a microwave or a vacuum cleaner after the pager and walkie-talkie attack last week. At its moment of greatest vulnerability, the world says, oh, Israel, back off. Don't finish the job. You're escalating things. Kick the can down the road and leave Hezbollah alive to fight another day. Oh, and those pesky civilian evacuees, some 60,000, probably more, who've evacuated their homes in northern Israel and been living out of suitcases for the better part of a year, scattered throughout the country in hotels, well, tough break for them. But ceasefire now. That's all we know. Ceasefire now. We must have a ceasefire. And despite all that, Israel said, nah, We're going to put our security first. We're going to do what needs to be done. We're going to strike a death blow, literally, against Hezbollah's entire leadership. Its entire leadership. Hezbollah's leadership is gone, decimated. Nasrallah, the top dog for 32 years, and we want to get into the ramifications of why he was so important. He wasn't a figurehead, folks. He was important. He was an operational player for Hezbollah and the Iranian regime's grand plan for the region. Not only Nasrallah, the entire leadership of the elite Radwan force taken out last Friday, September 20th, again, in Beirut, again, in an underground lair, as they planned an invasion of the Galilee. Hassan Nasrallah, the not so dearly departed terror master, talked about this for years. We are going to invade the Galilee. And they had grand plans. And imagine this, and I talked about this a bunch here on the live stream, on the Watchman, on Stakelbeck tonight for years. Their vision was to conduct an invasion, October 7th style, probably larger and more lethal in magnitude, because Hezbollah, although you can't tell right now, was a much more formidable foe than Hamas. And by the way, they're not dead yet, anything but man, they're weakened severely. But their plan was to storm across the border and not necessarily storm above ground. Remember, Hezbollah has terror tunnels as well, just as Hamas does. About 6 or 7 of them were uncovered by the IDF back in 2018, stretching into northern Israel from Lebanon. I was in one of them. You may have seen my report. I went with the IDF into the bowels of one of these tunnels. It felt like we were descending into the bowels of hell, 200 feet beneath the ground, this Hezbollah tunnel, which, by the way, it emanated from an auto body shop on the other side of the border, on the Lebanon side. Isn't that something? Hezbollah, much as it has commandeered, taken over civilian homes throughout southern Lebanon and literally placed rockets and missiles in the attic or the living room, it took over an auto body shop right on the other side of the border. That's where the tunnel originated. Isn't that something? Well, a wrench was thrown into their plans, no pun intended. My daughter would say that's a dad joke, but hey, it's Saturday. Emanated from this auto body shop and led into northern Israel near Metula, that beautiful city. And the IDF took journalists from around the world, media members, Western diplomats, and said, this is what we're facing. So they planned an invasion of the Galilee, and then their plans were put to rest when they were all killed last Friday. Folks, if you look at the organizational chart of Hezbollah right now, no one remains at the top. And not only that, Operation Exploding Pager, I've called it, September 17th, and its sequel on September 18th with the exploding walkie-talkies, that didn't target just some low-level schlub on a street corner in Beirut. That attack, that ingenious, unprecedented, historic cyber attack by Israel, in which pagers and walkie-talkies became essentially mini Trojan horses in the hands and pockets of Hezbollah operatives, that wounded or killed mid to high level Hezbollah jihadis. So that was crippling. And Hezbollah has never recovered from that. We have a situation now where 10 days, about 11 days in, today's September 28th. In the past 11 days, you and I have witnessed the world's most notorious, most dangerous, most well-armed terrorist, not just group. It was and is a terrorist paramilitary organization, more well-armed than some nation states in the Middle East. You've witnessed them be absolutely pulverized before the eyes of the world. So in the past, little bit less than a year, you and I have seen Hamas and Hezbollah sign their own death warrants. Hamas did it on October 7th. Hezbollah followed on October 8th. Unilaterally, key point there, folks, unilaterally began launching rockets, missiles, drones, and mortars at northern Israel. They chose to do this without provocation, same as October 7th. Evil is arrogant. They didn't think they'd have this reaction from Israel. They thought they were going to get away with it. Hey, Israel's going to bomb some targets, and that's that. And they counted on international pressure to force Israel into a ceasefire. But I think Israel made very clear increasingly throughout the past 11 months that no, this was different. The game has changed. And since July in particular, wow. Taking out Hezbollah commanders, Hamas leaders, bombing the Hodeidah port in Yemen with the Houthis. More on them in a minute, by the way. And the broader ramifications for Iran's ring of fire here. Destroying, essentially, a huge chunk of Hezbollah. This fearsome, formidable, they've been built into by the world, even by Israel, even by the West, an 800-pound gorilla. Don't mess with Hezbollah. Because if you do, they have the capability to launch thousands of rockets per day and hit all points across Israel. Remember, Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey. It's a tiny nation. Don't mess with Hezbollah. Because, man, they can invade on the ground. They can blanket your entire nation with rockets. They've got precision-guided munitions. They can target the Dimona nuclear reactor in the Negev. And folks, the thing about it is they still have at least the arsenal to do that. But two problems here. Number one, who will fire the missiles, the rockets? There's still thousands of Hezbollah jihadis, don't get me wrong. They're still very much, they're not crushed yet. On the ropes like they never have been before, certainly. But there are still thousands of Hezbollah terrorists who are healthy, not mentally healthy, but they're healthy in terms of physically, and they're battle able. But do they have if so many high-level guys are eliminated, do the remaining Hezbollah jihadists have the know-how to handle advanced weaponry? Precision-guided missiles? That's a question. The chain of command has been broken. The lines of communications have been completely broken. Paranoia, looking over their shoulders. Their morale has been crushed in the past 11 days. That's one problem for Hezbollah as it tries to mount a response here. The second problem is Israel very wisely has targeted not only the missile and rocket stockpiles, but the launchers. Hey, they've still got tens of thousands of rockets and missiles laying around. But if you don't have the launchers, you can't fire them. So they're facing massive problems right now. By the way, I want to get more into this strike yesterday real quick and who Hassan Nasrallah is. I want to get into what the Houthis did today. And what now? What next with the Iranian ring of fire that Iran worked so hard to cultivate over the past 42 years? Iran formed Hezbollah in 1982. 42 years, the Iranian regime has spent building this organization up into that 800-pound gorilla, so-called, that we talked about. And then in 11 days, they've watched it all unravel. 11 days in September, it all unraveled before their eyes after 42 years of building this organization up. After years of building that ring of fire around Israel, they have now lost one ring, Gaza. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad have been smashed. Yesterday, this was overshadowed, but it's a big story. Yesterday, as Nasrallah was being eliminated, Israel announced that Hamas has been defeated as a military force in Gaza and now is simply a guerrilla group that can carry out guerrilla attacks. 23 of the 24 Hamas battalions have been destroyed since October 7th. Top leaders killed. Sinwar is still alive. And by the way, Hamas announced this morning, Sinwar has changed his location. He's in the wake of Nasrallah's death, Sinwar saying, uh-oh, and he moved his location. I'm sure he moves his location frequently, obviously, just as Nasrallah did. And by the way, Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian supreme leader, also, Iran announced, is in an undisclosed location right now. Folks, they're scared, and they should be. Evil is arrogant, and then that arrogance returns upon their own heads. It's very biblical. It's very biblical justice, which isn't surprising when God's land, the apple of his eye, his people Israel, are involved and are being targeted by evil, demonic, death cult forces. Let's dig into the strike more because, hey, Nasrallah was not the only top dog who was taken out in this Israeli strike in Beirut yesterday on Hezbollah's headquarters. If you're just joining us, we are talking Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the not so dearly departed, we can confirm now officially, terror master of Hezbollah, who now we know officially was eliminated. Folks, if you like what you're hearing, current events, breaking news, Middle East focus, Israel focus, from an unapologetically biblical perspective. And hey, I'm just coming to you from my house today, and I was a few minutes late. Apologies to everyone. Got a homecoming dance. We're talking jihad here. But in all seriousness, daughter has a homecoming dance tonight. Some friends of hers were over. So a little chaotic, a little hectic here at the house. And you have to lean into that, right? When the world is turned upside down, when the prophet Isaiah talked about days where good is called evil and evil is called good. Welcome to 2024. You got to remember all that's good and true in this world. Faith, family, and freedom. The 3 F's. And it's good to be able to step away and have that Shabbat with your family, spend that quality time with your family like God Almighty intended. So although things seem to be falling apart, a friend of mine named Jan Markell says, no, things are falling into place from a prophetic perspective. So if you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe. Click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey, as you can see, we'll come to you on the weekend. Whenever something big happens, we want to keep you informed, our loyal watchmen and women on the wall. And we're close to 1 million subscribers. I think we're right around 988K right now. Wow, hard to believe. So that's exciting. Our goal is to hit 1 million by the end of the year. And through the grace of God Almighty, we're doing a pretty good job of it with your help, everyone watching. And the more you subscribe, the more YouTube will send this video out to the ends of the earth with a message of biblical truth for such a time as this. It's a time where not only Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah was eliminated, but folks, listen to this. Ali Karaki, who, a little more, I'm just checking this out, just reading it straight off my phone for you. Ali Karaki, who was the commander of Hezbollah's southern front, big dog, right? The southern front, that's southern Lebanon. That's the main power base perched on Israel's northern border. He was in the bunker with old Nasrallah yesterday. He was eliminated. That's major. So, I mean, and other top commanders, what's left of them from Hezbollah. I said yesterday when Nasrallah sat at his table in the bunker and looked at maps of the region and plotted and schemed, he was surrounded by a skeleton crew, quite literally. No one was left. All of his comrades dating back 40 years. There were people eliminated in Hezbollah in the past 11 days who were involved in the 1983 Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, which killed 243 brave U.S. Marines. That's how far back these guys go. And now in 11 days, it's all unraveled. And I mentioned that Marine barracks bombing in particular. I'm an American. And this was an organization, Hezbollah, that prior to 9/11 had more American blood on its hands than any other terror organization. That's Hezbollah. But Ali Karaki, eliminated. And this is big. And it's been overshadowed. But this is important. In that bunker with Nasrallah and Ali Karaki and other top Hezbollah commanders, we know that at least one Iranian brigadier general was killed. This is Newsweek. I'm just quoting directly from it. Israel killed Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Brigadier General Abbas Nilfarushan, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, during the bombardment of the capital, Beirut. He was 58 years old. He served as a deputy commander for operations in the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, which is Iran's paramilitary. He oversaw the Guards' ground forces. He was a big fish, and he's not the first Iranian general to be taken out. But why was he there? Why isn't the world howling about this and weeping and gnashing its teeth about this? That Iranian generals are literally in the bunker planning the war effort against Israel. I have to laugh and shake my head. You get trolls sometime who comment and say, why is Israel there? Why is Israel doing this? They're occupying. Why is Iran in the bunker with Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah? Why is Iran in Lebanon writ large? Why is Iran in Syria? Why is Iran in Yemen? Why is Iran in Gaza? Why is Iran in Iraq? Why do Iran's tentacles reach to Venezuela and Latin America and the tri-border region of South America? Why isn't that the question being asked in the unhallowed halls of the UN? Wherever the Iranian regime's tentacles reach, there's misery, chaos, and destruction. Let me rattle those names off again. Gaza, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. Folks, it doesn't get more chaotic, miserable, and just plain downtrodden than these nations and in that region called Gaza. What's the common denominator there? The head of the snake, the Iranian regime, Iran's involvement. Iran is entrenched in all those countries. And Iranian entrenchment equals misery, death and destruction, because that regime is wicked, it's demonic, and it has evil plans. Yet now its evil plans are really in disarray. Folks, the Iranian regime spent how many years building up that ring of fire? Just to review, if you're a new viewer, Israel, I mentioned earlier, the size of the state of New Jersey, a place I know very well. I grew up in Philly, right next to Jersey. I still vacation at the Jersey Shore. I can tell you, you can travel Jersey from north to south in several hours. That's it. Same deal in Israel. 8 hours, 8, 9 maybe, from Mount Hermon down to Eilat on the Red Sea. Tiny. And Iran successfully at least built the ring of fire. Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, as we call it, surrounding Israel on all sides with the intention to squeeze Israel like a vise. And then October 7th happened. Now, it's up for debate still whether Iran directly ordered it on that day, or whether Iran, I believe Iran knew it was coming, but maybe not yet. Iran didn't know it was coming so soon. It seems that Hamas got ahead of the other Ring of Fire members on October 7th. The plan was to invade Israel and bombard Israel simultaneously from all sides. The Ring of Fire would ignite on all sides to overwhelm Israel's missile defense systems, to catch the people of Israel completely off guard. Folks, could you imagine if Hamas, I'm talking at full strength prior to October 7th, Hamas, Hezbollah invaded at once from the north and the south on a Shabbat morning or on a holiday like Hamas did. And then from the Golan, terrorists crossed in from Syria. And then Judea, Samaria, the West Bank ignited. All while there's rockets and missiles and drones being fired and raining down from all points, including Yemen and Iraq, hitting civilian centers. That was the plan. And they planned to do it by 2040. According to what Israeli officials have said about Iran's long-term strategy. They believed that Israel would disappear from the map by 2040, the latest. Ayatollah Khamenei wrote a book about it several years ago called Palestine, where he mapped this out. He laid it out. And the big aim there would have been for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So then you not only have the Ring of Fire, but you've got nuclear deterrence. You've got a nuclear umbrella. Can you imagine, folks, if, say, Hamas, Hezbollah, they're raining rockets down on Israel. Israel goes to respond, and Iran says, not so fast. we've got the bomb. And if you attack Hamas or Hezbollah, there's no telling what we may do. We've got our finger on the nuclear trigger now, Israel. You better be careful. That's an intolerable situation for Israel, obviously. So Israel obviously will not allow Iran to go nuclear under any circumstances. Mark it down. But this brings up an interesting question. As the Ring of Fire strategy now seems to be unraveling. Look, let me preface this by saying Hezbollah is not dead yet. Although, I mean, if you would have told me that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah and the entire Hezbollah leadership would be eliminated, and the response from Hezbollah would be a trickle of rockets and missiles, a few dozen maybe. Any rocket's bad, but just a kind of a trickle of rockets, 15 here and there, I would have said, no way. They've got thousands. They're going to rain down thousands. It hasn't happened. So either Hezbollah is holding them in reserve. If they are, I don't know what they're waiting for, because your entire leadership was just destroyed. If you're not going to fire them now, when are you going to fire them? So it's either somehow strategically they're holding these in reserve. And they have a big surprise plan for Israel, which God forbid, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. Or, and I think this is the more likely possibility, they've been decimated so badly, they don't have the capability to mount any sort of massive response at this moment. Can you imagine the disarray? The complete non-existent morale within the ranks of Hezbollah right now? This has been shock and awe over the past 11 days. So that's unraveling. Gaza's unraveled. Hamas and Islamic Jihad done for the foreseeable future as any sort of significant threat to Israel. You haven't seen, I think, one Hamas rocket in the wake of Nasrallah's death. They don't have the capability. They've been smashed. Hezbollah has been smashed over the past 11 days. They're still intact in many ways, but who's calling the shots? And here's a possibility for you. Will the Christians in Lebanon perhaps finally step up and throw off the yoke of Hezbollah? What about the Sunnis? A lot of the Sunnis hate Hezbollah as well. Remember, Hezbollah is a Shia organization. It's going to be interesting to see that internal dynamic in Lebanon over the next few days and weeks. But if you've got two rings in your ring of fire that are being taken off the board, and again, I'm cautious. I said evil is arrogant. Well, Hezbollah's not done yet. A lot of work still to be done. I'm sure Israel will go in on the ground, at least in a limited capacity. But man, they've done this largely from the air, folks. How incredible is that? Through the air and through an incredible intelligence operation with the phone, with the pagers and walkie-talkies, without one Israeli soldier crossing into Lebanon. Pretty impressive. But to really do the trick, destroy those rocket missile stockpiles, take out more jihadis, they're going to have to go on the ground, I assume. We'll see what the next few days bring. But in the meantime, what about the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and militias in Syria? And look, there's always the option of trying to stir things up more in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, although the IDF has carried out many counterterrorism operations there over the past year and killed, locked up thousands of terrorists there in Judea and Samaria. So what's Iran to do now? I've been saying out throughout the past week, in Iran's calculus, look, Hezbollah is the crown jewel. It's too big to fail. Certainly, if Hezbollah was ready to be taken off the chessboard completely and just become a non-factor, Iran would get directly involved, right, to try and bail Hezbollah out. But man, I don't know at this point, because I think Iran is scared of what Israel may do, and they should be. Israel means business. The gloves are off. As Netanyahu said yesterday in that UN speech, enough is enough. They've reached the breaking point. So the Iranian regime is saying, wait a minute, the Zionist entity is pretty dangerous right now. They're strong. They're not playing games. Uh-oh. So if Iran, and look, let's see. I don't know how Iran doesn't. After the death of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader, on Iranian soil under their noses on August 1st, they vowed retaliation for that never came. I'm not saying it's not gonna, but and then after Hezbollah has been decimated, it's been the silence from Iran, other than complaining and saying, "Oh, this is horrible," has been deafening. Do they have something up their sleeve? Perhaps. No doubt. No time for overconfidence if you're Israel. No doubt. Or, and that's a possibility, but there's also the likelihood that Iran right now is scared. And they're in a tough spot, and I don't feel sorry for them. What do they do? If they try to pull something off like April 13th, 2024, when they launched over 300 projectiles at Israel, it's a good bet that Israel is going to unleash hell in response upon their heads, their oil refineries, their nuclear facilities. It's all on the board now. And here's a key point there. And that's giving Iran pause, clearly. Deterrence has been reestablished, thank you, by the IDF. And Benjamin Netanyahu, that swerve. I want to talk about the ramifications for Iran's nuclear program. Two side notes, though, real quick, a quick aside. Number one, the swerve I talked about. Again, Bibi knew. He knew since Wednesday that they were going to target Nasrallah. He flew to the UN, and Nasrallah said, well, we're off the hook. He's busy at the UN. They're not going to target us now. And there were rumblings. It was all a swerve, all a diversion. There were rumblings that Israel would agree to a ceasefire with Hezbollah. And I'm scratching my head saying, what? You're ready to deliver the death blow, and you're going to now? Don't cave to the United States, the Biden administration, these Western fools like Macron. But Bibi very shrewdly gave the impression that, you know what, we're considering a ceasefire. I'm speaking at the UN. And man, oh man, what a swerve. The US was apparently shocked. Israel gave him a heads up a few minutes before. And that's it. So that was very, on the part of Benjamin Netanyahu, wow. And number two, an aside, the Houthis. Now we're saying, where is Iran going to turn in the ring of fire? The Houthis are a likely candidate. They've got some heavy weaponry. They've got ballistic missiles. And they fired another today. Thankfully, it was intercepted. It was aimed towards central Israel. The sirens went off. But it was taken out. That's the third missile in the past week that the Houthis have fired and Israel has intercepted. Now, take it back to July. A Houthi drone was able to breach air defenses, strike an apartment building in Tel Aviv, and kill an Israeli civilian. Israel responded with a massive strike on the Hodeidah port in Yemen. They mean business again. But the Houthis are playing with fire. And 3 ballistic missiles launched at Tel Aviv in the past week. You can expect an Israeli response eventually. I don't know when, but absolutely. Press the advantage, right? Against the entire ring of fire. We've also seen drones fired from Iraq from the Iranian militias there. There's about 100,000 of them, by the way. Big numbers in Iraq of those Iranian-backed Shia militias. Syria as well. Now, you've still got the Assad regime with a large missile stockpile. They're an Iranian client state in Syria. But bigger picture here. This is why if Hezbollah is removed from the board as any sort of credible threat, which we may be in the process of seeing, this is why it hurts so badly for Iran. Hezbollah was Iran's insurance policy for its nuclear program. What do I mean by that? If and when Israel strikes Iran's nuclear weapons facilities, Iran's first means of response was, boom, activate Hezbollah. Now, Iran had largely held Hezbollah in reserve for the better part of 18 years. Ever since the last Israel-Hezbollah war, the Second Lebanon War in 2006. Waiting for the day to unleash the full fury of Hezbollah. Look, over the past year, Hezbollah launched about 9,000 projectiles at Israel, but it wasn't anywhere close to Hezbollah's full capabilities. It fell into kind of this tit-for-tat status quo almost. They fire. Israel, always on the defensive, response. Israel changed the game 11 days ago, as we've been discussing, and the rest is history now. But Iran was saying, okay, Hezbollah is our pawn that we move on the board. They dare to attack our nuclear facilities. They get the full force of Hezbollah. Thousands of rockets per day on every Israeli city, Dimona nuclear reactor. That was the plan. But evil is arrogant, and they overplay their hand. Nasrallah hitched himself to Hamas in a foolish, foolish move that cost him his life. And now Iran is saying, uh-oh. I was reading some interesting analysis last night about this. And I leave you with this question. And I apologize, I haven't asked you guys more questions. Usually I'll throw some out there. We've got the most educated audience on YouTube, I like to say. We've got a great educated audience here, and love you guys and gals. But a question for you, something to ponder over the next few days. Now that it seems that Hezbollah would not be able to mount a major offensive against Israel in the near future. Perhaps I'm wrong. I hope I'm not. We'll see what the next few days bring. But if Hezbollah can no longer deliver that mighty blow to Israel, does that prod Iran to speed up its nuclear program and to cross the finish line sooner? We're hearing report after report that they're close. The uranium enrichment levels, they're there. They're nearing the red line. Just something to ponder as we go here on a Saturday. Does Iran now say, uh-oh, we need to speed it up? Because Hezbollah, if Hezbollah is out of the picture, the faster we can go nuclear and declare ourselves, maybe we'll catch Israel off guard. And we'll declare ourselves a nuclear power and we'll show we have the bomb. So Hezbollah or no Hezbollah, we're golden. We've now got the nuclear deterrent, the ultimate factor, the ultimate umbrella. Keep an eye on that, folks. I think more attention will turn to Iran's nuclear program. And also keep an eye on Iran. Now that the proxy strategy is unraveling, look for Iran and its Ezekiel 38 partners to come closer together, especially Turkey. Erdogan today condemned Israel once again and called for a global alliance against Israel to stop Israel, accused Israel of genocide in Gaza and Lebanon. He's off the rails. He's an anti-Semitic demagogue, Muslim Brotherhood through and through. And there's a lot of parallels, let's just say, between his rhetoric and the Iranian regimes and his view of things. So you see the prophetic chess pieces moving on the board. Much more to come here. We will keep you updated, folks. By the way, if you want to go a little deeper with us, we also have a premium membership here on the channel. Of course, regular subscription, awesome, completely free. If you want to go a little deeper, and we do a premium Q&A at least once a month with our premium members, where you and I just chat and we do a Q&A together. And also the Stackscast, my weekly podcast, get the full podcast, the video version of it, and you help us to keep going. Unfortunately, having a pretty large YouTube channel, a podcast, a nightly TV show on TBN, man, it's not free. I wish it was, but your support helps us keep going. I think it's $4.99 a month. So if you're interested in that, you can click join on the homepage as well. That's a cool feature we have here, premium membership. And remember, every Monday through Friday night on TBN, I just mentioned Stakelbeck Tonight, my brand new nightly show on TBN, the world's largest Christian television network, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time every weeknight. Don't miss it. Maybe we'll be back with you tomorrow. We're following this all very closely. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching.